Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Annyeonghaseyo. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to present. And thanks to Kotra, of course, for putting on a great event here. It's good to be back and traveling and talking to people after a few years of COVID, and it's good to be back in Asia. I myself have lived in Asia over 20 years. I was actually here in Korea a lot. I set up a JV for fuel cells a few years back, and been in fuel cells for about 15 years, so I'm quite familiar with the environment, and I really enjoy coming back here, and it's not just for the barbecue chicken. So thanks again, and I'll be talking about a new company which I joined recently called Advent, and how we're looking at scaling up what we call high temperature PEM fuel cells. So of course Hyundai, great company, very famous on their low temperature PEM, as we call it. There's other great companies out in the industry, but we're a little bit different, and I'll talk a little bit how high temperature PEM could be quite interesting for the Korean market. Quick snapshot of who we are. We're a company that was recently listed on NASDAQ. We're focused on, as I mentioned, this high temperature PEM fuel cell technology. We acquired a few companies, which I'll talk a little bit more about, that gives us a little more market experience and obviously a high potential for growth. We have various manufacturing locations around the world and potential to expand on that, and I'll talk a little bit slower and talk about how we can scale up. My apologies, it's been a while since I spoke in Asia, so I'll talk a bit slower for the translators. So we do have a long history in terms of where we came from. So we started in material science, essentially what we call MEA development, and that was through various research labs in the US since 2006, developing and creating our core technology, which is the high temperature PEM MEA. Over those years, we fine-tuned it per se, sold the MEAs into the market, but then as we came to commercial viability, we actually listed on NASDAQ a little over a year and a half ago. We bought actually two companies, one in Denmark with production also in Germany, and another one in California, and conglomerated all this material innovation focused on this high temperature PEM technology. Various patents. We're about 200 people right now. So these are some of the research labs. We used a lot of the innovation and a lot of the patents. So we actually bought some of the patents. We maintained it, developed it ourselves, and thus we are ready, I'd say, what we call for prime time commercial applications through all this innovation and technology development over many years. So what's exciting about ours, and quite different than you might have in your traditional fuel cells, is multi-fuel. So that means, yes, hydrogen, of course, and we hope that's green hydrogen, not blue. We also have the capability for methanol. So that's a very interesting fuel that's very popular in the marine sector, both in Korea and globally. Most of the marine companies feel methanol will be one of the key drivers for decarbonization. E-fuels, and even natural gas with a reformer, of course, is something that we can incorporate into our MEA or our fuel cell. So it's a bit unique where we have this multi-fuel approach, which is unique in the industry. And then the technology itself. So of course, over time, like any technology, we will develop further capabilities, cost down structures, cost reduction structures. But what's unique also about it is we can use the heat, which is very important in, for instance, what they call CHP applications. We operate at a little bit higher heat, and I'll talk about that. But also we need less cooling. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but high temperature PEM actually needs less cooling requirements than a typical low temperature PEM. So again, that means, what does it mean? Cost savings, of course, for the systems as well. And of course, with heat utilization, that increases our efficiency, above 80%, which is quite exciting, of course. So with this material science understanding, resiliency on our MEA, we believe that on lifetime, we can get basically the same lifetimes that are typically in the market on low temperature PEM, in the range of 20,000 hours. We can get very similar startup times on the start of the systems, which on PEM is very interesting compared to, let's say, SOFC. It's in the seconds, not hours. And operating at these higher temperatures, as mentioned, we can use the heat as a value, of course, right? So here's just a bit of a summary where we think our strengths are in terms of the material science, or MEA, the fuel flexibility, and also combining that into the systems. So we've learned a lot through various acquisitions on how to develop complete systems. And our goal is actually to work with like-minded partners to develop them in other markets and other applications. We don't see ourselves as developing all the systems ourselves. We see ourselves in cooperation with other companies around the world to develop these systems, depending on the fuel requirements, depending on the applications and the needs of potential partners. So that's a bit of unique. We're not just selling MEAs. What we're doing or trying to do is develop solutions with other people. With scaling up, and you've probably seen this from other fuel cell suppliers, but ours, to be fair, is quite similar. Cost targets, cost reduction targets based on our technology, where we're looking at $250 a kilowatt. This is probably very similar as famous companies like Hyundai and others. Oops, I pressed it too quickly. And basically ensuring that we have cost competitive focus that's comparative to whatever else is in the industry in terms of PEM technology. Where we are today, we have, for our new technology, the prototype stack is already developed. It's a 5 kilowatt stack. The new optimized stack with a balance of plant will be ready next year in the 30 kilowatt range and 50 kilowatt range, and mass production expected in 2024. And that's for our new technology. We have existing technology today, which I'll talk about as well. How we stack up. So everybody says, how do you stack up versus SOFC versus all these other technologies? So one point I want to reiterate, though, is PEM technology is really the global leader. Let's be fair about that. It's in almost all the applications today. We have hundreds of companies globally promoting PEM, and we're one of those companies. So the capability for cost reductions, I think, are definitely better in PEM, or much stronger. In terms of the other key technology aspects, efficiency, fuel flexibility, we're a bit unique where we tick essentially all those boxes. So we have the capability for very good power density as well. We don't really require the water for recirculation. And then, of course, cost reductions, as I mentioned, which I think are key for this industry to really take off. So where we are in terms of applications, with the acquisition of a company called Serenergy in Denmark, we're one of the world leaders in deploying actually these high temperature PEM fuel cells. So we've learned a lot in this area. We've deployed about 1,000 of these systems, primarily in what we call critical backup applications, a lot in the developing countries where the power grid is maybe a bit unstable. So what we do is we put these as a diesel generator replacement. Okay, so that's where we've done a lot of our work and learned a lot in this area. We've developed a lot of work in marine sector, smaller scale, to be fair, anywhere from 10 kilowatts to 100 kilowatts. But basically, we've already got DNV certification or approval in principle. I think one of only 2 companies globally who have this, and allows us to put our fuel cells in open water into ocean-going vessels, which is a little bit unique. And of course, as we scale up in larger systems, we'd also look at combining with like-minded partners or joint development to expand in this area. In defense, it's a bit of a unique application, and we've already got U.S. Department of Defense approval for small wearable systems. So the challenge with batteries, as we know, are they're extremely heavy. It's very hard to put batteries on a backpack. But for us, you can see here that the power density is very interesting, where, for instance, we'd need about 9 kilograms of methanol versus 55 kilograms of battery for the same sort of application. So you can see here that the power density and saving in weight is dramatically different. And the nice thing is we're using existing fuel. We're actually using windshield washer fluid. So that might cause a few jokes or laughs, but it is true. This is what we use, which is essentially methanol. And that's a challenge often in the defense industry, where they don't want to introduce new fuels. So they use windshield washer fluid, which they have to use anyways. So that's a kind of a unique area that we're also doing a lot of work. And this was based on a company we acquired in California. So scaling up. Obviously, we have to get there. One of the unique areas we're embarking on is what we call heat and power application, HIPO as we call it, 3 to 5 kilowatts. And what's exciting about that for us is we actually were granted 782 million euro grant from the EU to advance production in this area, primarily in Greece, but for the whole European Union. So that was only, I believe, 2 weeks ago where we were granted that funding, and you can see over the next 6 years we'll be getting extensive funding to advance our production capabilities in Europe. So that's a big development for us. And we'll take that learning and take what we have in terms of our existing technology, expand on it into larger. This is a picture of our 100 kilowatt system today that's running in a marine application, but basically scaling up. You know, this is, to be fair, a smaller system, but I don't want to speak over this. Okay. 감사합니다. So yeah, basically we'll take our medium power and then obviously scale that into larger power applications, which we've learned on these sort of smaller applications. Power density is very, very good. This is our concept imagined for a 1 megawatt system. This doesn't include inverters, to be fair, but it's a simple 1 megawatt system. And the design that we have is essentially in that range of very small scale and very good power density. Can be used for remote applications, off-grid, etc. Then, as we scale up, you can see here the development path where we go from a 5 kilowatt to 15 to 30 and to larger building blocks. So this is the plan that we have already in place in our R&D and engineering. The pathway is there. We have existing technology already supporting this. And we also have the MEA and core technology already stable and been verified to develop these applications. And again, we're looking for partners in Korea and elsewhere to also work with us to develop these applications. Again, scaling up, cost reductions. We have various specific areas where we can reduce platinum catalysts in the MEA, weight reductions, and all the other reductions that are required for scaling up. We have a clear path towards those reductions as well. Cost reductions, of course, part of that will be scale and different applications. If we're only focused on automotive, I don't think we'll get there. So we're looking at power applications. We're looking at marine applications and other end-user products to allow us to scale globally as well and reduce the cost. So this is just a summary to say we're keen. We think we have the core technology, which is definitely proven in the field. And in Korea, we'd like to work with partners to ensure that this technology, which is very unique in terms of fuel flexibility, in terms of high temperature applications, CHP, is available in the Korean market fairly soon. And with that, thank you very much for your time, and definitely open for questions. I'll be walking around probably near the Canadian Pavilion to see old friends, but I'll be around if you have any other questions. Thank you. And I have to introduce my next speaker is Andrea Pousidou, who will be coming up. And apologies if I didn't pronounce it right, but thank you for your time, everybody.